And then we'll jump right into it. So the CTA, so it's a new federal law. It's been talked about for some years at this point. The main drive of it is to prevent money laundering, financing of terrorism, tax evasion, other financial crimes. It's going to be implemented and enforced by the US Treasury Department. So the idea is to create a database of entity management and ownership information. Right now, those terms are a little bit broad and kind of vague, but I think that pretty much encapsulates what it is. It's going to be accessible currently to federal and state law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies only with a court order, and other government agencies. So for instance, IRS. Similar databases do exist in most other developed countries, specifically in Europe. Some of the other Commonwealth countries as well will have it. Australia, South Africa, places like that. It's intended to assist in the modernization of the current laws already in place to fight these type of financial crimes. Okay, when will reporting start? So currently what we're looking at, and it has kind of changed a little bit. I think they wanted to implement it probably earlier from things that I've read, but currently what we're looking at is January 1st, 2024. For all entities formed on or after that date, they will be required to report. For all existing entities, which everybody in here who has an entity, you're gonna fall within that scheme. You have until January 1st, 2025 for any pre-existing entity to file a report. So what entities need to report? So currently it's kind of interpreted broadly. I'm going to say more or less if you filed with the Secretary of State, that entity is probably going to need to report with some limited exceptions. So this is going to apply to LLCs, corporations, limited partnerships. It will also apply to statutory trusts as well because they're filed at the Secretary of State level. Common law trusts, revocable trusts, currently that is not included in the definition. It's also going to apply to foreign entities who were filed in foreign actual countries who are operating within the United States. Certain exceptions do exist. So many companies that are already kind of on the radar, so 20 plus employees above $5 million in revenues, additionally entities that are already subject to some sort of scrutiny, so SEC reporting companies, banks, insurance companies, they already have reporting requirements, they're going to be exempted. Tax exempt entities are also going to be exempted as of right now. So who actually needs to report? So we talked about the entities, but who's going to be reporting? And currently this is still a little bit in flux. It's broadly interpreted currently. So what it's going to look like is they said beneficial owners of entities. So a 25% share or more. There's really no loopholes to that. They intend to cover whether it's a membership interest, shareholder interest, whether you have options, whether you have a controlling interest. So really any way you want to define that, that's currently included. It could also apply to any officer that exercises substantial control over the entity. So this would be CFOs, CEOs, presidents, treasurers, company organizer. This is one of those parts where they're kind of debating it. If you look at the ABA, American Bar Association, topics on it, basically it's saying like possibly if an attorney files it for you, if a CPA files it for you, they're probably also going to have to be listed in the report. As I said, the interpretation currently is going to be broad. Probably a conservative approach is going to be taken just to try to not miss something and be in violation of it. So what information needs to be reported? Again, fairly broad in scope, but remember, this is a limited database. Right now, it's just going to be extended to law enforcement, federal, state, local, state and local, if they have a court order. Could it be applied to financial institutions, but that's only with company consent right now. But basically what you're going to be providing to this database, which is managed by the Treasury, is the company name, any doing business as names, trade names, business address, state of formation, EIN, owner, or as I said before, beneficial owner, controller's name, date of birth, home address, and copy of identification. It's going to have to be disclosed within 30 days of formation after January 1st, 2024, if you're a new filer. It's going to have to be disclosed up until January 1, 2025 for any existing entities. So you have right now, anybody in this room, you have until 2025 to file that information. It's going to have to be updated if it materially changes. So you have a new owner, you have a new partner, that information is going to have to be updated. The database has to be updated. Update has to take place within 30 days of the change. So who's in charge of the database? As I mentioned, it's the United States Treasury, but specifically it is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. They're going to be creating and they're in charge of the maintenance of the newly created database. Reporting will be completed by submitting information to them directly. Currently, they're not actually accepting anything. So even if you want to take a jump on it and submit, you can't. It's not even available until January 1, 2024. And that may be pushed back. It's potentially not even the date, but right now that's what it's looking like. It's currently under construction still, so that's why I say these things are always subject to change. So as I mentioned, shared with federal law enforcement agencies, what we're talking about there, DEA, FBI, those are the two, any of the Treasury departments as well, state law and local law enforcement agencies with a court order. There's talk of it applying to civil cases as well with a court order. But I don't want to be a fearmonger here. Most of that information would come out in discovery in a lawsuit anyway. The court order would pretty much necessitate that you're already in a lawsuit at that point. Also could be shared with financial institutions, but only with the company's consent currently. So penalties for non-compliance. Right now, there's a range of fees and fines up to jail time. The fees that I've heard at the top end are $10,000. But I also have seen some things where it's going to be a daily rate. And I've also seen jail time up to 2 years so far, but I've also seen some flux on that. Timelines are going to be strictly enforced. However, they do have, if you've submitted in the wrong way by accident, inaccurate information, you have a 90-day grace period to be granted a resubmittal with accurate information. So I think that there is going to be some wiggle room for people who are trying to act in non-nefarious ways. So as I mentioned, you can't even report right now if you wanted to. It's not yet complete. It's under construction. Reporting is scheduled to begin January 1, 2024. And then, obviously for people who have existing entities, you'll have that entire year to kind of figure out how you're going to report, what you're going to report. And that's really it. And I guess in conclusion, you're going to hear a range of things, people who have read things on this, from everything from like, this is the end of anonymity to it's not a big deal. I'm going to try to take a measured approach here and say that it's somewhere in between. Yes, there's less anonymity than there was before, but currently it's going to be shared with government agencies. It's not going to be publicly available. I can't go and just request the information currently. And so to me, I think that you're still going to have anonymity from the public, anonymity from third-party creditors who haven't yet filed a lawsuit. As I mentioned, once a lawsuit's filed and there's discovery, once you get into depositions, things of that nature, inquiries, that information is all going to come out. That takes time and money to get to. Same with this. You're going to need a court order to access this as a regular person. That takes time and money to get that. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. It's pretty brief, but I didn't want to bore you with any of the details, especially since they may or may not change in the future. But at this point, I will open it up for any questions that you may have.